Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So a lot of us are getting quite itchy fingered when to plant our potatoes. It's not quite time to plant our main crop potatoes yet, but there's nothing to stop us from planting our first and second earlies. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to plant and when to plant your first crop of potatoes. With your first early potatoes, real common thing to do is to chit your potatoes, and if you chit your potatoes, then sometimes that gives you a little bit of a jump on the season. But if you haven't chitted your potatoes, it's not the end of the world. Now I've just bought these bags from the local supermarket. I'm a little bit behind on getting like a lot of people, gardening is a little bit, so gardening can be a little bit hectic, and like a lot of people, I'm a little bit behind on where I wanted to be. I wanted to be very well prepared and buy all my stuff well in advance and show you exactly what I'm doing. But I got to the supermarket and I found these couple of bags of seed potatoes, and I'll show you what I've got. Now sometimes your seed potatoes will come in like this, and these are not the typical type of chits that you want. Because they've been kept in the dark, they've developed these shoots on their own. Now that would be perfect, that would be ideal, but these kind of things are not the ones that you want. Now what do you do now that you've got them? You'll see some videos that will tell you to cut these off and then start again or throw this in the bin. No way. Look, I've just paid good money for that, and there's no way I'm letting that go in the bin. Now it's with these kind of chits, it's not the end of the world that you have them, that they're growing like that the way they are. So these ones were Charlotte, and these ones are Maris Peer. See, that's exactly what you don't want. Now some people will tell you to cut them off, but as soon as you plant that into the ground, plant it a little bit deeper and it'll get itself established. It'll do all right, you know that. 2, 4, 6, 8. So I've got 8 of them, and I've got 2, 4, 6 of them. So the first thing you're going to need when you're growing potatoes is seed potatoes. We've shown you those. We've shown you the ones that I've got. And the second thing that you're going to need are your containers. And these are 30-litre containers that I use. And I think they're absolutely brilliant for growing potatoes. They're a perfect size and they're a nice stout material. And because they're black plastic, they absorb heat, so they warm up that little bit faster and give you a little bit of a jump on the season. Now let's go get the third thing. Come on. You're going to need loads and loads of good, lush compost. And this is all homemade compost that I've been harvesting. Beautiful. When you're growing potatoes in containers, one of the things that you might come up against, and one of the challenges is that where do you get all this compost from? Now the simplest way is to make your compost yourself. I've got loads and loads of composting videos that show you how to make compost, right away from small batch compost to making compost on large scales. So yeah, we've got all this lovely material. So in my containers, the first thing that I'm going to put in is my wood chips. So a good, probably this container is about 18 inches tall, something like that. So about 3 inches of wood chips at the bottom. I use wood chips for a number of reasons. The first and foremost reason is that it's free. I can get wood chip, and I can get a lot of wood chip for free, so it's cost me nothing so far. So now I've filled up, a fifth of the container, and it's cost me nothing so far. Now the other thing is wood chip holds onto water. It sucks in water, and when you water these plants, it's going to hold in all that moisture, and it's not just going to let it go to waste. Obviously some will go to waste, so you'll need a tray underneath to catch that runoff. But because the wood chip's acting like a sponge, it'll release the water back to the soil over time. In the summer, when it's not raining as much, those wood chips holding onto the water just makes it a nice environment for your plants to grow in. On top of our wood chips, this is where all our homemade compost goes in. So loads and loads of homemade compost. And because these are determinate potatoes, they're going to grow at a single level. We don't have to worry about sort of earthing these potatoes up. They're going to be in one place and they're not going to grow higher and higher. so you don't have that worry. Obviously you will lose a little bit of height on the soil because it'll settle, because it's quite airy and quite fluffy at the moment. Once it starts compacting, once it starts getting watered and settling, it'll start to compact a little bit. Obviously it's not going to compact like the ground compacts because of the nature of the material. You've got big bits, you've got little bits, you've got all kinds of textures in there, all kinds of material, so it's not going to compact like that. Even some manure, look. Now would be a good time to chuck in some fertilizer. So you could use a handful of chicken manure pellets. If you're into bloodfish and bone, then that would be an option. I make a lot of my homemade fertilizer. I use a lot of wood ash in my in my potato growing. Now, using wood ash, I'll do a video specifically on using wood ash. Now, when it comes to growing potatoes, wood ash has a number of benefits. It's great for preventing pests or slugs, and wireworm is great for stopping them from coming in. The other thing is it's got loads of potassium in it, so it slowly releases that potassium, and it's slow release. It'll slowly release that and it'll feed your plant over time. So it's absolutely fantastic. And it buffers the pH of the soil as well, and it just makes it gets it to a pH where you're not going to get diseases like potato scab. So let's get my Charlottes in. In a container like this, we're going to go for 3 Charlottes. Even with these not very nice chits. Yeah, so 3 Charlottes just there. And the chitty bit up, and just push it down a little bit, they'll come up really lovely. Loads of compost over the top. Don't worry about just covering it and then coming back and filling it up and doing all that malarkey, because they're not going to grow at multiple levels, they're going to grow at a single level. You're going to be absolutely fine with just covering them up straight away. Another sprinkling of wood ash over the top. Yeah, perfect. So we're planting these on the 25th of March. So in about towards the end of June, the beginning of July, we're going to harvest these. These are second earlies, so we're going to harvest them in about 14 weeks, that sort of time. Oh yeah. This is one of the good things about this. It's the handles. Just make life a lot easier. Oh. If you were going to plant first earlies, then you'd plant them around now. You plant them around the same time as your second earlies, but your harvest time means that you can probably get them in about 12 weeks. Plant them on the 25th of March, you probably get them towards the end of June. Absolutely wonderful. So I've just planted a Maris pear. Now Maris pear are a second early potato, but they're a slightly bigger second early potato, so they're almost as big as a main crop. Your Charlottes are going to be they're going to be that size, just a little bit bigger than an egg. They're going to be sort of salad potatoes for things like, boiled potatoes, new potatoes, that kind of thing. But your Maris pears, you can actually chip these and wedge them. They're actually quite good for that sort of thing. Oh yeah. This time in March is normally when I'm planting my second earlies and my first earlies. But sometimes you can be a little bit cheeky and you can actually get an even bigger jump on the season. And I'll show you what I'm doing over here. So over here in this bucket, I've got a little potato plant popping its little head up back here. So you can be a little bit cheeky and even get a bigger jump on the season. And if you've got a greenhouse, if you've got somewhere frost free, you can plant your potato probably. I think I did that one in February, but I've gone as early as January, just when it's been a mild year, stick them in the greenhouse and you just get a little jump on the season, because even when it's cold and gets freezing cold in here, it's not going to get frosty in here, so you're not going to have to worry about frost damage. Cold, they'll sulk, but they'll come bounce back. And I'll probably be able to harvest that in May, so I've got a little bit of a jump on the season. Now in terms of fertilizer for potatoes, you don't need a really nitrogen-rich fertilizer. So for things like, manure, chicken manure, these are quite nitrogen-rich. So if you're going to use that, use it sparingly, because what will happen was that'll encourage a lot of top growth. So you'll get a massive plant, but you won't get many potatoes. What you want is more balanced fertilizers. You want more fertilizers that have a richer potassium and phosphorus content, so that'll encourage root growth and tuber growth. So homemade compost, absolutely wonderful stuff. Potatoes are very hungry feeders, so homemade compost will have a lot of good nutrition in there, and it'll give those potatoes a really good kick. I've grown potatoes just in wood chip before, so absolutely fine. And when you see the way I grow potatoes in the ground, I do grow just in wood chip. I wouldn't recommend it in containers, simply because when you grow potatoes just in wood chip in containers, what can happen is you don't hold off onto enough nutrition into the soil, and the potatoes don't do as well. Now, when it comes to main crop potatoes, I like growing my potatoes in wood chip, and this is the bed that I'm using for this year, or this is the bed I've prepared for this year to grow my main crop potatoes in, and I'll show you exactly how I do that. You've seen loads of videos in the past of how I've done that, but it's something that's a tried and tested method for me, that when it comes to main crop potatoes, they always do better in wood chip than in containers. I have some absolute stonking results. So there's a quick guide on how to grow potatoes in containers and how I grow my especially first early potatoes. So you plant them now towards the end of March, early April. You'll get your harvest towards the end of June, early July. And with the second earlies, wait till the end of July and you get a nice harvest. So I'm going to be enjoying these potatoes for the next few months. I've still got potatoes left over from last year in the ground. They're going to start sprouting if I don't harvest them very quickly. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe for regular updates. And if you'd like to support our channel, you could always become a patron. So I'm going to leave it there for this one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.